Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining in, and thank you all for joining in time and waiting in the lobby. My name is Amit Gupte. I'm going to be your host today, and it's interesting that we have a significant amount of people joining in today to look at what NetBackup SaaS Protection solution could do for you. So today we are going to talk about how can you take control of your SaaS data and can you build a protection story around it. With me today, I have Alan and David. Alan is our solutions engineer based out of Singapore, and David is a solutions engineer based out of Jakarta, Indonesia. So, Alan and David are going to help us talk through how the NetBackup SaaS protection solution comes together and give you a little more context on how Veritas is looking at the SaaS data protection space. With today's session, we will have a lot of question answers coming in, I hope, and we would be more than happy to work through the questions and help you answer them right on the session. To help answer the questions, I have Ranga. Ranga is a solutions engineer based out of Sydney, and I am going to help you, answer the questions as we go. So, Alan, can we just move on to the next slide, please? Awesome. So the best question that we get today is going to be awarded a $25 voucher. So keep the questions coming, bring out all the concerns or questions around SaaS data protection or SaaS workloads, or in general, any other questions that you have in data management space. And we'd be more than happy to help you out with the answer. Now, as part of the session, we are expecting a few polls. So, the polls are something that our presenters will talk through, but, we expect full cooperation, and, we are hoping that we'll deliver the actual value that you're looking for from this session. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Alan to take it from here. Over to you, Alan.
Well, Amit, thanks. Thanks for introducing us in. So I have here today me, myself, Solution SE from Singapore, and also David Cassandra, who's my counterpart in Jakarta. We'll be going through with you on some of the benefits and agenda of actually what we're going to run through for NetBackup SaaS Protection. Just a high level on how we're going to run through it today. Well, I'll be talking on why organization need SaaS backup, and later on, NetBackup SaaS Protection, as in the HubSpot acquisition itself. Then I'll be handing it over to David to go through the NetBackup SaaS Protection architecture, as well as some of the advantages of why we should be using NetBackup SaaS Protection itself. After that has been completed, we'll be coming back to me, whereby I'm going to go through with you what is a NetBackup SaaS Protection licensing model going to be like, since we are actually going to launch it very, very soon. We also want you to have the idea how are we going to help you to sell it to customer based on partner wise, and customer how you're going to purchase it, right? So without further ado, I think Amit also mentioned that we're going to do some polls in between to keep the conversation going, and also to see what's your thoughts in some of the things that is happening in the environment today. I actually want to call Trudy to help us to run the first poll. Yeah, I believe you can already see the poll in your screen. So the question is actually very simple. What SaaS application are you considering to protect? It can be now what you are protecting, or what you are going to expect to be protecting in the near future. Actually, this is a multiple choice. You can click more than one answer. So probably you can submit. Click on submit, and your choice probably will be showing the results.
Yeah, so let's give another 15 seconds for the audience to click onto the responses.
Yep.
And we should be able to see the results right away. All right, I think we're good. Trudy, there we go. Here are our results. Or do you, Alan?
Yeah, so as you can see, probably 87 of the result is choosing Microsoft 365. Well, that's totally what we want to share today, why we are here, to really help you to have the engagement to help you to protect your M365 itself. Google Drive, Box Slack, that are of course something we are also looking at. So probably we can go on to the presentation proper now to discuss why 365 is something we want to really talk about today. Well, okay. Since based on the poll, we can see that SaaS application adoption is really skyrocketing. We actually got some information from Gartner that actually today, even for 2020 itself, there's actually 80 million net new active user that have onboard to Microsoft Teams, right? As we know, because of the situation of COVID and the pandemic, a lot of customers are shifting their business model to run and upload files and do file sharing in the cloud space, the SaaS space itself, right? So even with this 80 million onboarding, it actually really means that we have actually 145 million net new, 145 million active user running Teams itself. So with the data all moving in the cloud, actually a lot of administrator has been thinking, wow, how are we going to manage this data sprawl? A lot of users are moving business data into the cloud itself, in the SaaS platform itself. How are we going to protect it? When they move this data into the cloud, they also think, oh, this data belongs to who? How are we going to protect it? And when we do a restoration, how do we do it, right? So best of all is definitely to have a software that can help you to do that, right? So even though SaaS data protection is very important today because of the ever-changing environment, however, it's really often overlooked, right? Based on the article pool and survey that we have done, actually more than 85% cloud admin and architects believe that the cloud vendor should be responsible to do your data protection. But is it really true? Let's see, right? So I have an article to share with you here. So as you can see, Microsoft actually posted an article in their own website itself telling you actually you, the customer, are actually responsible for your data itself. Just go to the right side on the SaaS portion. Even though you are moving your data into their SaaS environment, even the cloud providers are helping you to protect your physical security to ensure it's not breached. They are helping you to do the hosting infrastructure, network control, your application level control, even up to co-share model of client protection and identity access management. But you can see that for the data classification and accountability wise, it's really everything is pointing back to the customer should be taking care of it. So this is something we want to highlight. Do always know that the data is your responsibility, the customer responsibility. You need to know how to back it up and always have a way to restore and recover them. And of course, for the partners out there, it's really our job to help customer to have a solution to help them to protect this layer because data is always key, it's always everything. And I think this is very important statement that we need to give to the crowd or audience today. So moving on to now that we know that data protection is really the customer responsibility. So we need to tell organization, so why do we need to protect our SaaS backup itself, right? So in SaaS environment, definitely your cloud service provider would always have a replication redundancy. They will have protect you from site failure, the data center failure. However, we need to understand replication is not a form of backup. It only enables you to have a copy that is somewhere else when the main data center goes down. But in terms of data recovery or data restoration, let's say, for example, you are throwing some content into SharePoint itself. If you want to do a restoration to a certain point in time, will you be able to do that? In actual fact, you might not be able to, even though there's a replication being done in the first place, right? Yeah. So the next thing that we want to think of is really about malicious attack. So we also need to be aware sometimes your data get malicious attack, they are corrupted, they are infected. This data may need to be removed and deleted. So do you have a copy that you can restore from? Yeah. And of course, one of the largest threat has been done by survey and proven. The largest threat is actually accidental deletion. So it's really about the user might have deleted something and they didn't realize, right? So here I want to give you a live example on something that is related to this, right? So I have been SE in Singapore for in Veritas for about 2 years. So I have a customer coming to me and telling me that they need to find out the proposal that has been done something like 3 years ago. Wow. But however, my predecessor have already left the company. I do not have his file. But however, we do upload our files into a common platform in Microsoft Teams. So I was going into the Teams and going through trying to find out the files. And in the end, I found that, oh, I can't find the files. It's not there. And I have to think of ways of how am I going to find this file back to explain to the customer what we have proposed 3 years ago, right? So I have to make a lot of calls to partners to find out, oh, what has been discussed then and everything. It takes me a couple of days. Finally, we have to mix and match. We finally have some idea what's going on. However, in my mind at the time, I was thinking, well, if I have a protection backup that's helping me to run this, I would have recovered the proposal with a few clicks rather than spending a few days of conversation with the partners and my own internal staff. We finally came up with what has been proposed, right? That is something that is a real life example for me why I think that protection might help me if it's there. However, that time is not there. So it's a very challenging things to do. Yeah. So this may happen to you uh, in your real environment if you upload something into Microsoft and accidentally you delete it and you may not know. So coming down to that, I think it's important for me to share. Microsoft do have some protection mechanism on their own to help you protect this. So usually they do it like a dumpster way. So if you understand, usually when you, let's say for example, your SharePoint, you delete some content, the content will be moved into a temporary space. It may be holding it for a default of 14 days, but you can configure it out to 30 days. Yeah. So in between the 30 days, if you think that you want to retrieve the data, you can inform Microsoft that you want to retrieve it. And they do have some process in the backend to help you do that. Right. So for Exchange itself, they have even a further, one step further protection. Usually when you delete an email, it usually goes into this deleted folder. It can store there for about 30 days. Then it will move into the dumpster for another 14 to 30 days, right? However, if you don't do anything to retrieve it, after that period of time, the data will be purged, right? It means that there's no way for you to retrieve the data then. Yeah. Another thing, for you to retrieve this data, have to understand that it's a manual process. You have to raise the process to Microsoft itself, and usually you have to wait for a couple of days before Microsoft is able to get back to you. And do remember, we are in a situation that a lot of people are onboarding into Microsoft itself. So more and more user is onboarding. This kind of request is going to become more and more, right? The time for you take for you to retrieve or restore something may be dragging longer and longer, right? So importantly, if you do have something that you can control and immediately have a way to restore, it will definitely help you to meet your compliance requirement and your governance of your company requirement. Yeah. So touching on this, I also think of another scenario, right? Microsoft do have this backup capability, but it's actually for those active users, right? So as long as you sign a plan with them, you are paying for the license, they will be helping you on this protection. How about those people who left the organization, right? Because of compliance reason, there might be a requirement for you to keep their email exchange, their files for a certain period of time. This portion will not be able to be covered by that. So next up, I think one of the hotter topic recently is really about ransomware. So ransomware has occurred, I think, around us. Most of the company would have known about it, would have heard about it. But I also can tell you, some of the audience here, even maybe they may have faced it in real life situation, right? If you are in a classroom right now, I would ask the audience to show me a hand who have heard of it, who have faced it, and who have done the recovery. But I don't want to ask that because it's not very nice. Some people who got the attack might not want to tell you that they have faced it before. But ransomware is very real. So in our solution, we do have this warm storage capability that help you to protect your data. Once the backup has been taken, the data will be protected by a warm policy where it's actually write once and read many. So in terms of when you get a ransomware attack, this data will not be affected and you'll be able to restore from it. Another thing about ransomware is not only on a protection portion, it's a very important plan is for you to, when you are hit with a ransomware attack, you must be able to do a recovery, right? So even when they ask you for a ransom of a couple of millions, 1 million, 2 million, even after you pay, it doesn't mean that you get back your data, right? It's very important to understand that. So having a strategy to restore that is utmost critical. So another thing that to share, if you do not have a separate copy of your data, if your initial copy is gone, and if you don't have a separate copy, that is not really a true backup itself. And of course, you need to be in control of your restoration ways that you want to do. I must be able to restore to maybe a granular file level or object level. I want to recover to a certain point in time. And of course, I do want to have a control of restoring to certain location, maybe on-prem location, maybe back to the same folder, the same mailbox. All this you must be in control, right? Data is very critical, so we need to be in control of the data itself. So all in all, what I'm trying to explain here with the scenario that have happened to me and scenario that happened to other customer, data protection natively offered by SaaS Protection is there, definitely is there, but most of the time it's really not enough, right? We do need to have some solution that can be able to help us on that. So I think we actually come into a solution whereby we think we want to have a solution to be able to help customer in the SaaS environment. So I think we have been doing very well in the enterprise space with our enterprise data service platform, leveraging on enterprise software by NetBackup to help customer to do protection and recovery on-prem. Even we have solution by BRP that help you to do a DR solution and HA and of course info scale, right? In terms of that, that is more on the on-prem workload. We now also want to focus on SaaS, and that's why we actually integrate our solution. We actually acquire HubStore itself, and we want to present you another member of our portfolio that is NetBackup SaaS Protection itself, right? NetBackup SaaS Protection is actually built on Azure platform in Azure itself. So we are able to help you to back up your O365, your Google Drive, your Outlook, your Teams, your groups. You can even back up your AWS S3, Azure files, Box, and Slack. Right? It's really a one all-in-one solution for you to manage multiple connectors that I have just mentioned. So you will be thinking, oh, so why did you all think that HubStore, or now we call it NSP, right? Netbackup SaaS Protection is the way to go, right? You can see that actually out there in the market, not a lot of people can tell you they can protect M365 entirely, right? The whole suite of M365. Some of them may be able to protect mailbox, they might not be able to protect SharePoint, right? Our solution, NSP, Netbackup Access Protection, is able to help you to protect the whole space entirely. I think that is a very important point. You want to have one solution to be able to protect everything as a whole in a single pane of glass. What I have shared with you just now, right? Natively, Microsoft do have their protection capability, and of course, a certain kind of retention that you can stretch up to like 93 days. But leveraging on NSP, we are able to help you protect and scale your environment size up to petabytes, and of course, with what we so call unlimited retention, right? Everything that is being built on our software, the NSP, is protected through a policy. So for you to do a deletion of files that you have protected, you also need to configure something called a deletion policy. So anything that you actually specify, fixed state that you want to delete away, actually it will be continuously incremental protected. So how come HubStore do well in their environment against some of their competitor? Is really because of the ability to do a high performance backup and restore, right? Because HubStore itself is built in an isolated and dedicated tenant environment. That's why we give you an ability to really scale the resources in the backend for you to actually configure multiple connectors with a lot of different resources in the backend, giving you the ability to really scale the environment horizontally. And from there, by scaling the method, scaling the resources this way, we avoid, right, the thing called API throttling or API contention, right? Backing up of the Outlook, the mailbox and everything, usually we do it through API calls, right? The more API calls you are doing, actually it takes out a lot of resources. That is how we actually able to scale out and actually achieve a 6 TB backup per day, right? This is something that is quite impressive, actually. And of course, with the tight integration of Azure AD itself, we enable you the ability to support multiple M365 domain across the various ADs, right? Of course, you can also do restoration across site. And of course, from a single pane of glass, you can manage multiple uh, M365 domain across different zones in a single pane of glass. So you may want to also leverage on the ability to do schedule backup, which is something very common. And of course, another impressive thing here is that you can actually do a continuous data protection for your users. So we actually configure a monitoring service on the connector that you actually enroll into continuous data protection. Then from there, we are able to monitor, is there any changes since the last scanning? And if there is, we will actually do an update of the backup immediately. So usually it takes this and do this within like 30 seconds. So it actually enable you to have always a latest backup going into the protection, cloud protection, storage protection itself. So just like to highlight, today, Azure data center geography actually is already about 50 plus sites, or you can call it 50 plus regions. So you can easily spot your region that is in there. You can easily provision them as actually you can provision as a two method. One as a Veritas hosted model. Another one is actually you can host it in your own Azure subscription. So we do allow you to have the flexibility to choose how you want to host it. But importantly, we want you to know we are tightly integrated with Azure. As long as Azure is available in your geography, you'll be able to provision NSP there for you. So come back to NetBackup SaaS Protection itself. As I mentioned, it's really an enterprise cloud data management platform that runs in Azure. We have tight integration with Azure AD. And of course, we do things like Azure Sync itself that we can actually import a lot of attribute from Azure into our platform, right? And of course, we provide an all-in-one backup as a service for M365, Bob, Slack, and of course, Google itself. There are other development going on for SaaS protection. Of course, those will be announced when it comes closer to the dates. Yeah. So we are today currently aiming this enterprise solution for our customer who are enterprise customer who are looking at 1,000 and more users, right? So if you do have some conversation or what if you have users that are less than 1,000, do come to your sales and even come to SCE to have some discussion. We do have some thoughts about that and we can share with you more on that, right? As of today, The licensing model is based on per user, a minimum of 1,000 user. And for front-end tab right here, we are mentioning is really about protecting your structured and unstructured data. For example, your Azure files, your AWS S3, and even some of the structured things like databases. So for the front-end terabyte wise, we have to start with today, as of today, is a 50 terabyte for you as a minimum benchmark to start. And from there, you can add 1 terabyte by 1 terabyte. So I just like to reiterate what I've gone through so far on NetBackup SaaS Protection. So it's really an enterprise-grade solution that is built as a single tenant, right, in Azure, that actually give you the ability to perform a high performance and scalability due to the single tenant model, whereby we can scale the resources backend without affecting other customers, right? The enterprise grade security are also due to the single tenant model, which I think David later on will be sharing more. And I do not want to steal his thunder per se. I'll let him share more because of that. But of course, you can do things like IP whitelisting, you can do private VNet and all that. Later, he will be sharing more. And of course, important thing today, since there are so many people onboarding into SaaS as a platform, I think your internal customer, your cloud admin, your backup admin will be quite overwhelmed with all the new requests coming in to help them to restore files, restore email. So I think it's important for them to have ability to let the end user do a self restoration. And of course, this self-restoration must be able to help customer do it based on a role base so that they can only restore their own data. And of course, they do have the option to restore to the original location, or they want to restore to somewhere else, or they want to export to on-prem, right? Uh, because of the data sovereignty issue, we have not been able to be very successful in VSP, one of our previous product that's protecting SaaS, because we do not have a data center here running that. I think this is something that is helping us. Also, the customer who really want to protect their data and keep the data in the Joe, this is one of the very advantage points that we do have, right? One of the point I have not touched on yet is about doing e-discovery search itself, right? So we are actually running Elasticsearch in the backend, which we are able to let you search across multiple content, can be your Exchange, can be your Teams, can be anything that we are protected, all the connectors, right? And good thing is the search is actually can be done across the federal AD itself, right? Not only your Joe, but you can do the search across your different AD, and the search can be done across the metadata, and also you can do it into the content itself, right? You can search for the keyword in the content that you backup itself, and also for videos and images and pictures, right? It's a very powerful search itself, and I think David will be talking more on it, right? So I think with all this information, I would also like to call out Ranga. Ranga is a very experienced solution engineer on our side who have a lot of conversation with customer today of what's their requirement on data sovereignty, do they have performance requirement and enterprise grade requirement of security. I think I would like to take this chance to call Ranga to share some of the conversation and engagement he have with customer. I believe some of the question may be in the audience mind also. Maybe today is a good time for him to share and also let the audience have a few of some of the questions that they may be thinking already. Ranga?
Thanks, Alan. Look, rightly so, data sovereignty is a key for many customers. Now, what NSP or NetBackup SaaS Protection gives you is the ability to deploy your NSP at different geos. So we have 50 plus data centers supported. At this time, it purely runs on Azure cloud. So you have the choice of running it anywhere, wherever you need this data sovereignty. But what NSP can then give you is the ability to do a federated search across these deployments. So you have the flexibility to deploy to your RPOs and RTO requirements. Performance is another key thing which will be covered, and the way it integrates, as Alan was talking. So we have a deep integration into Azure Active Directory, which means that we just don't capture the content, we capture the metadata as well, so that we can look at a very granular level, and we can do it with SIRS for many data management tasks. For instance, it could be discovery of data through granular search, or you could create granular policies to move data to other tiers, like other storage tiers like cool or archive tiers and so on. So yeah, look forward for further slides. I'm happy to answer questions while they're coming. So keep your questions coming. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for sharing, Ranga. I think it provides a lot of depth to better than what we have said so far. So it's more important to know what customer have actually asked you and request from you as a whole, right? So I think before I hand over to Trudy to do another poll, maybe would you like to go through some of the FAQ that has been answered, Amit, or we want to do this later?
No, I think this is a good time, Alan, and Ranga has done a very good job responding to most of the questions. And there have been questions around, the with Office 365, what are the components that we can support? And Ranga has already answered them, but I think it's good to re-emphasize. So one of the questions was, do we back up Office 365 audit logs, and do we also back up, or is there a consideration for backing up Microsoft Planner? So as per what Ranga has already answered, yes, Office 365 audit logs are supported as part of the backup. And the Planner, Microsoft Planner app is something that we are considering. It's not being supported today, but that's definitely something that is being considered as part of the roadmap. And there was one more interesting question around the backup policies. Is it real time? Is it schedule based? And to your point, Alan, I think and this is where you might want to re-emphasize the continuous data protection, where we have an ability to configure the backup frequency of as frequent as 30 seconds for some data set. Can you just
Yeah,
talk through a little
correct.
bit more on that?
Yeah, so organization can actually really look into their retention or RTO, RPO requirement. You can definitely do it based on the scheduling. Yeah, and of course, if you have very high critical retention protection that you want, you can actually choose our continuous protection brand, where you can actually do monitoring on the connectors itself. Then from there, we ensure the data is actually any changes of data is actually back up and actually updated in the backend within like 30 seconds. Yeah, as a live
That's
backup
perfect.
itself. Yeah.
Correct. And that is something which is the flexibility that the solution provides to our customers. So that's great. So thanks, Alan. And I think I'm going to hand it over to David to take it from here. We are doing good on time, I'm presuming. Yep. So David, over to you.
Actually, before that, actually, we wanted to do another poll
Oh,
because after hearing all this, we would like to see what has changed in their mind for our customer and our partners. Yeah, thanks, Trudy. So,
thanks,
so
Trudy.
in today, what we have shared, right? What is the competitive event would lead you to instigate SaaS data protection? So basically, what are the points that you think is important here that you think you want to embark or even leverage on the SaaS protection platform, right? So maybe that now we can choose something. It's a multiple choice again. You can choose all four. You can choose one.
Sounds good. And we'll give another 15 seconds for people to complete the survey. And like last time, the results should be in front of us
You have to take a
right
drum
away.
roll.
Yeah. All right. I think let's see what the results look like.
Yep.
Thank you, Trudy.
Okay, thanks. As we see here, recovery from all data loss scenario is definitely 80%. So I believe recovery from data all scenarios includes all the different workloads that you're protecting, I believe. Ransomware, another big topic, as I mentioned just now, and how we can help you later on will be stress and elaborate by David itself. And how about I tell you this? Instead of choosing one by one, how about I let David explain to you why our solution can help you in all the four information that is published up there, right? So David, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Okay, good morning, good afternoon. So this is the landing page that we have set up from our DevOps teams. It's a part of the NSP White Glove, and basically the SaaS experience that you have will be the same, whether it's reside on your hosted Azure subscription or in Veritas hosted. So in the landing page of the admin portal, we can see there's some menu that we can choose to set up. I'm not going through all of the menu. I'm going to discuss only for the importance. Let's say we start with the administration. So in the administration, you will be able to set up the permission for the user to access which role that we want. And then we also have a tagging. I see in the question and answer is asking about how can NSP or HubStore can do a data classification and tagging. So actually through this menu tagging, we can tagging all the data that already in the store. So it will make easy to go searching later on. Okay. And then just like Alan said previously that in NSP, we actually not deleting any data. To be able to delete, we must create some policy in the retention menu so that we can choose what the data need to be deleted. Okay. And then in the discovery menu, these powerful tools to do a elastic search. So the searching can be based on the keyword and it will search across the email, file server, and also the SharePoint and OneDrive. And maybe it's not explained yet, but actually the other advantage of NSP is the ability to do file archiving for on-prem unstructured file. Yes, so we can do file archiving for us for on-prem file server, and then we can also leave the stubbing and for the file server. So actually, when user access it, it will directly talk with our NSP. Okay, and then one of the advantage of doing tagging is also that maybe there's some use case where the user want or the admin or the organization want to delete certain keyword or certain user. So actually with the tagging, we can make that possible. So we can choose criteria what that we want to make it expired or delete. Yeah. And just in the previous explanation from Alan that the advantage of NSP is the now the capability of the self-service. So with the end user portal, so the end user can do browse whatever data that they already put in the store, in the hub store or the NSP storage, and then we can do a searching by keyword. And then the good thing is also we enable the collaboration. So actually the user can collaboration with the internal organization or with the external organization through the share capability. So by doing a sharing to internal and external, we can do the collaboration, and also we can set the expiration date for the share file. So that's some of the capability of the NSP, and this is the landing page when the user as an admin login to the admin portal.
So David,
Next.
David, just to jump in, and while
Yeah.
we are on this slide, so
Sure.
for someone who actually subscribes the solution for us and subscribes the NSP solution, what happens in the background is our Veritas backend team is going to provision the entire backend systems required to stand up the SaaS protection. So that is as Alan mentioned, that will be hosted in Azure. The whole infrastructure is something that the Veritas team will provision for our customers. Now we do have flexibility around, is the Azure tenant or subscription something that our customers would like to bring, or would you want Veritas to host the Azure subscription in the Veritas tenancy? So it is a flexibility that is offered, and once the whole infrastructure is set up and instantiated is when this portal is made accessible to our customers. And this is the admin portal. As you can see right at the bottom, there is the end user portal as well. And as David mentioned, the administrators can then build the role-based access control model as per the company's requirement, and then delegate privileges as well as roles and roles and restore permissions to end users, so that the operational efficiency just improves. So I just wanted to fill in that dots, and we can now move on to the next step of the architecture.
Thanks, Amit. Yeah. So in this next slide is actually that just Amit explain that we actually set up all of things for NSP for the customer, but actually we also give a customer control to do a setup for the connectors, especially for Microsoft 365. So the admin can have ability to create a new connector to Microsoft 365, and then from here we can select whether it's Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, or the audit logs. And then we can also choose, for example, maybe for a mailbox, we can choose maybe for a certain mailbox only, or for all mailbox. We can also choose where we're going to store the storage. So we also set the schedule. Just we can choose whether we're going to go with the scheduling by date, by time, or even we can do it by continuously protection. So this is the page that we adding a new connector from the admin portal. Next, Ellen. And this is more on the end user portal. So whenever an user log in, but not as an admin, so they can see whatever data that already stored in the NSP, and then they can browse the data. And for example, we can see here Microsoft 365 mailbox and also the SharePoint OneDrive. So actually the user can go deeply to the email folders and file, and then they also can do searching by keyword in this end user portal, and they can select files or email to be downloaded from this end user portal, and also can be shared with the internal group or with the external correspondent. Next, Ellen. Okay. Now we want to explain what is the building blocks of the NetBackup SaaS Protection. So in this example, is we going to protect Microsoft 365, either a mailbox, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, Outlook, log, or group. So we can deploy NSP instance in your hosted Azure subscription or in the Veritas hosted. So basically the instance will isolate it and also dedicated, even if the implementation in your hosted environment. So the NSP instance will be isolated. So inside the instance, the isolated instance or dedicated instance, there are three components. So we start with from the middle. We call it as foundation resource group. Inside we have the web app service that automates all the backup jobs that we configure the policy before, and then also the Azure storage, blob storage that give you the immutable storage to store the data, and also the Azure SQL database to keep the metadata for the index data that have been stored. And on the left, we have the other resource group. We call it other resource group. It's basically the Veritas connector service that talk with your SaaS application API, integrated with your SaaS application API. And the uniqueness of the NSP architecture that we can create multiple connector to help to copy the data more faster. And this is also apply during the restore. So we can copy the data faster because we can create more connectors to the SaaS application API. And then last is on the right side is the search resource group. Basically, search resource group is that when the data already stored in the NSP storage, the indexer server will read the data and will index it, so it will make easy to do a searching. Okay, Ellen, please. And this will become our advantages because we can have a flexible hosting, a customer hosted or Veritas hosted, and the scalability and performance we can guarantee because we can spin up another VM to give another connectors, and all the components in the NSP environment are scalable. And we also give you enterprise grade security because we integrate well with Azure Active Directory, and also the flexible recovery. We can restore granularly in bulk to different location or to original location. Next, Ellen. Yeah, there's three things why we have enterprise security grade. One is that we have a tight Azure AD integration. So basically, we didn't manage the password for a user signing to NSP services. So it's all integrated with Azure AD, and we also can enable the multi-factor authentication and the single sign-on. And because we tight integrate with the Azure AD, so all the role-based access control or the ACL of the files for the OneDrive is being updated to NSP, and we also aware if there's something changes in the directory for user and group. And secondly, this dedicated tenant is basically we can deploy NSP environment into 50 plus Azure region. There's some case that maybe on the multinational company that the regulator for that country, specific country, required to keep the data in within the region. So that's something that we can address with dedicated tenant. And last is the security hardening. Just like Alan said before, is supporting the private VNet, IP listing, and also end-to-end encryption, whether in the transit or data at rest. So three of these will become a very good advantage for security. Okay. Next, Alan. Okay. in this page is to emphasize again what is the key capabilities NSP for enterprise. First, that when we talk about the enterprise company or organization, it should be able to scale in petabyte, and also must support the continuous backup capability. And because we are in the era of working from home, we can see a lot of Teams increasing usage. So it's become important because almost of the conversation is online and using Teams, and with the capability of NSP to protect Teams and also audit log, I think this is also a key advantage for NSP or Hub Store to differentiate to the compared to the competitor. And one thing again is the export externally. So we can export to PST, Azure Blob Storage, S3, and also to the on-prem. Okay, so with that, I give back to Ellen to talk more about the license scheme.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so probably this is an exciting portion. So many people will be expecting we'll be giving a dollar value there, how much I'm going to sign up for this. But unfortunately, no, today we are not going to share that. Today, what we are going to share is really how we are going to price our model on the framework itself. But for you, if you're really interested to get actual pricing, do reach out to your AM in your JOs and or even the SEs, and we'll be able to give you a pricing according to the services that you are running. So today what I want to do is really to go through the different pricing models and what are some of the features that's in there and not in there, which one you should be looking at, right? And of course, for the actual pricing, I think by the 17th of May, we would have make it publicly available by then, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, you do reach out to our internal team of Veritas, we can actually share it with you. No worries about that. So coming back to the framework itself, we do know that some customer want to start it with a very price sensitive for an enterprise. Some they want to start at price sensitive, so we can look at the enterprise itself. You can see a number of dollar sign there that shows you that there is some price difference, but actually it's not a lot. When the real price come out, you will see it's just a couple of dollars per month, right? For different kind of services. Yeah, anyway, for the enterprise, one of the main thing that you may want to see that it does not cater for end user self-service restore, right? So if you do not have this, you do have this requirement to have your end user doing a restore themselves, you probably need to look at the enterprise plus and above, right? Another thing that is not really covered here is really about the full text search. So this is only allowing you to do a search on the metadata itself. So if you want to search things that is in the content that you're backing up, you need to look at enterprise plus and above. So for enterprise plus itself, these are covered. One of the additional things that is here is really the scale out multi-regions, means that you can use a single pane of glass to actually manage multiple regions, right? Multiple setup in multiple regions. That is kind of the difference. And of course, the full text search that I have mentioned just now. So Enterprise Elite, of course, include everything. So one of the two of the main difference I would say is really the geo redundancy, whereby you can actually protect a different copy in a different geo, right? If the current geo can go down, you do have another copy of data that is actually outside the geo, not in the same country itself or in the same geo itself, right? And of course, there's also a SDK ability that you can do for you to do some API integration if there's a requirement for you to integrate with some other software and that is running APIs, right? So all in all, I would say that Enterprise Plus will be one of the common one that most enterprise would want, because usually they want to be able to do self restoration, and full text searching something is maybe very good for the environment, because more and more people are throwing data into the cloud itself, right? I also like to mention we do have two deployment model. One is very SaaS hosted, right? And one is end user hosted in their own Azure accounts. So just take note that if you are going to host in your own Azure accounts, right, you need to be signing up with Enterprise Elite. That is the only restriction, right, today, right? So charging wise, right, when you are using a Veritas hosted uh, pricing model, all the bill will be coming from Veritas, including your Azure resources and our licenses, right? If you are using your own Azure accounts, then you'll be paying a license to us for NSP. However, you need to make a payment to Azure for the resources that is being spin out in the backend. I think that may clear out your queries on how are you going to pay, what's the model that is going to be used, right? So hopefully this can give you a high level understanding. This is the framework. The actual cost itself do come to us. We will definitely want to share with you how it works, right? So another thing, just to give a high level, is only two kinds of pricing model. It's usually by per user for the Outlook, or for the 365 itself, the Outlook, the SharePoint, the Google Drive, and the rest is really for the files protection. Structured, unstructured is based on front end terabyte, right? So from there, I actually want to conclude the preso we have, and we are going to move into the Q&A. So you can post more questions. I think Amit, Ranga, and our team will definitely want to answer you whatever is possible. So Amit, would you like to do sharing on that?
Yes, thanks, Alan. And I think we are almost getting to the top of the hour. So before we open up for questions, what I'm going to ask the audience here is, if you have questions, and I do see a lot of questions in terms of how can we get this going in reality, and how can we start on the subscription. Feel free to reach out to your local and regional Veritas account teams. But if you don't know who they are and who you need to get in touch with, please reach out to us on this email ID that you can see on the screen. It is asr.team@veritas.com. So we would be more than happy to answer your technical questions, and we would be also more than happy to direct you to the right, the right channel partner, as well as your procurement channel, wherever you would prefer. So feel free to reach out to us. And I did have a couple of questions, Alan, around the security readiness of the solution and how are we running the security certifications. So let me spend 30 seconds in on that part. So speaking about security, because this is an Azure hosted solution, we are certified with all the standard Azure hosting principles. We also have SOC compliance, the SOC 2 type, SOC 2 type 2 compliance already in there. So we have the standard security compliances already in there. We also have the single instance deployment. The single instance deployment is basically the core backbone of the solution, and it gives the right security environment as well as isolation for our customers. And then from a perspective of exposure for external attacks, we have our own going back to the architecture, we have only the web application which allows the administration and the tenancy management data flow. That is the only one that has external access. All the other components that David talked through about the cloud resources and the virtual machines, as well as the SQL Pass database, all of these are internal to the system. So we have reduced the exposure vulnerability from an architecture point of view. And then of course, if somebody really wants to dig down into the details of how the entire security piece comes together, we have a detailed security white paper which we can share as per the requirement. But for that, again, you reach out to us on this email, and we'll be happy to take it further. So with that, actually, security was one of the most common questions that came in, and Ranga has been phenomenal answering all the questions so far. So good job, Ranga. And I think we are at the top of the hour. I would probably request everyone to send more questions if they have on this email, and we'll aspire to get back to you as soon as possible. And by the end of day today or early tomorrow, we should also get back to you on who the winner of the contest for the best question asked is, and our team will reach out to that individual by tomorrow. With that said, and I think we are almost at, we are at time. So thank you, Alan, and thank you, David, for taking time and walking us through the solution. Appreciate your time. And thank you all, the audience, for joining in and asking numerous questions. Keep them coming. We are here to help, and we are here to help you onboard this solution at the earliest. So thanks again. Stay home, stay safe if you are in a COVID affected region. Otherwise, take care of yourself, and speak soon next time. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.